Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foreman Community Demo number 61. So, today we have Tomer, Andre, and John as the speakers, and there are a lot of updates on the summit, and there's also OSDC Con going on, which we will have updates on in the next community demo, maybe. But let's hear about the new updates on summit today. So, in our agenda today, so before starting with the community demo, I would like to remind you to increase the quality of your YouTube video so that you can have a better experience. Also, if you have any questions, you can go on to our IRC channel, the hashtag the Foreman, and you can ask your questions on the chat of the YouTube live. So, agenda for today, we have Foreman at Red Hat Summit by Tomer. Then we have content view dependency solving in Katillo by John, and then we have OSCAP deployment by Ansible by Andre. So let's start with Tomer. Over to you, Tomer. Foreman at Red Hat Summit.
Thank you. So last week, I had the pleasure of representing the Foreman project at the Red Hat Summit along with Ewoud. For those of you not familiar with it, Red Hat Summit is the annual major Red Hat event featuring all sorts of Red Hat partners, customers, and part of it is an area called Community Central. Um, in that area, there are booths for the various projects that Red Hat products are built upon. In our case, those who don't know, there is Red Hat Satellite 6, which is built on Foreman, Catello, and several other projects. So in this area, we presented the Foreman upstream to the various people attending summit. There were quite a lot of people attending this year. We had a busy time at the booth, lots of questions, lots of interest around various areas. Ansible integration is one of them that got a lot of interest from a lot of the people there. Ewoud actually gave a couple of talks about Foreman integration with Ansible and Foreman integration with Ansible and comparing Ansible integration with Puppet integration. And I gave a talk regarding deployment or provisioning hosts on various compute resources. These talks were given as part of the Community Central Theater. So in that area, each person got a 15-minute slot and could present a subject relevant to one of the upstream projects. Both of Ewoud's talks and my talk did draw quite a nice attendance. Yeah, anything else you think would be interesting to share? We gave out a lot of swag for those who came, so I'm sorry if you didn't get any, and it was really fun. Yeah.
So, Tomer, were people asking you about a lot about the new UI that we had, or some suggestions related to the UI? Did you encounter some of them? Because we've been doing a lot of work on the UI, it seems, in the past. So, were there any concerns or any suggestions given about the new UI of Foreman?
Yeah, that's a good point. Some people who are familiar with older versions of Foreman or Satellite were very interested to see the new UI. The responses were mostly positive. Some people were also asking about various other, like what are our plans, and I told them that we now have a UI team that is dedicated to improving this, and that we are working with designers and UX experts in order to make the workflows better. This was also received very well from the users' perspective. They were very happy about that.
Great. I also remember Ewout mentioning that there were a lot of people who were there on the booth, but it was not as busy as FOSDEM. So, do you any comments on that?
Yeah, so for those who've been to FOSDEM and experienced the booth at FOSDEM, so usually the first day at FOSDEM, The booth is packed with people, several lines long, standing, trying to get a look and trying to talk. So the first day at FOSDEM is usually very, very busy, very hectic. This time, the booth summit was a bit less busy at the peaks, but it did have a constant stream of people always coming. I think it might have to do with the fact that summit area is just so much larger and there's so much more booths and talks and things to go to. So the mass of people is scattered between multiple places, and maybe if people see that one area is busy, they go to another one and then come back later. So it was more of a constant stream of people. I think for most of the time there were at least two or three people at the booth all day long, just talking to us. So it was pretty busy, no real breaks, but the peaks weren't as busy as past them.
Awesome. Sounds like a wonderful experience to me.
Certainly was.
Cool.
And shout out to all of the community members we met during Summit, or people who are maybe joining now after talking to us at Summit. We, we are very happy to have you and hope that you feel welcome in our community and hopefully also contribute in the future.
Cool. That was a warm welcome to all the new contributors. Thanks, Tomer, for your sharing your experience with us. Next in line, we have Content View Dependency Solving in Catalo by John. So over to you, John.
Thanks, Raul. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hi, my name is John Mitch. I work on Catalo. I'm going to be talking about content view version dependency solving for RPMs. We've added this to Catalo. This is a way to solve dependencies when you publish a new version of a content view. You might have set up filters to exclude different RPMs or include only a certain set of RPMs, and then you go to yum install something, and it's missing the dependencies because they have been filtered out by your filters on the content view. So this solves that issue, and there are some caveats which I will get into. But we've added this. You can create a new content view and check this box. I have one created here. And when you do set that flag, it will solve dependencies for every version of the content view. I published a few before the demo. So version 1, I set up some filters to exclude certain RPMs, and I can show you this real quick. Here, I'm excluding 2 RPMs here that are dependencies of another RPM. And then for version 2, I switched back to dependency solving, which you can also access in this details tab. So you can change it after you've created a content view. And you can see those were pulled in. So we went from 30 to 32 packages. And then I switched it back here. So we're back to filtering out, our filters are working and dependency solving is off. So I'll turn it back on and do the same thing. And publish a new version. So this is solving the dependencies now, and it will pull in the other 2 packages. There we go. 32 packages. So it's pulled in the other 2 packages that have been filtered out because they are a dependency of a package that exists in that content view version. There's some settings around this. The first one is the solving algorithm. So there's conservative and greedy. We default to conservative. Conservative will only add packages to solve the dependencies if the package needed doesn't exist. There's a typo there I gotta fix. And greedy will pull in the latest package to solve a dependency, even if it already does exist in the repository. So if you filtered out a later version of a package and the earlier version is there and it will fill the need for the dependency solving, it'll still pull in the latest version. We didn't see a huge need for users to use greedy, but so we defaulted to conservative, but it's just here if there are any issues with conservative, it's just a nice thing to be able to switch. And then there's also a default value if you want to dependency solve by default, which will check that box when you create a new content view. You can switch it here. So that's a good thing to have if you are leaning that way. There's a couple caveats. One thing is it will take 3 to 4 times long to publish. So that's a pretty big consideration when you're trying to set this on a content view. It takes a much longer time to publish a content view. We saw 3 to 4 times in our testing, but who knows, as the content view grows, it might even take longer. So that's something to definitely consider and plan for if you plan to use this. And scenarios with errata can still cause dependency issues. You can have issues where a dependency is solved for a certain package, but you pull an errata, it relies on an earlier version of that package, and it no longer, you'll still get dependency errors when you do the yum operations with that package. So that's also something to consider. It's not 100% foolproof, but for the most part, it's going to be updating and dependency solving for your packages. Yeah, and that's it.
Cool. I think although it may be more, it may take more time, but providing flexibility by giving the users an option is a cool feature of the project since ever. Like, okay, moving ahead, the next topic would be by Andre, and he would be telling us about OpenSCAP deployment by Ansible. So over to you, Andre.
Hi, you should be able to see my screen now. And today I will be talking about the OpenSCAP deployments by Ansible, because previously the only option to deploy Foreman SCAP client was Puppet. And the reason we had Puppet in the first place is that it was kind of convenient way how to get the client to the VM and configure it and update the configuration file that comes from Foreman. But we understand that not everyone is keen on using Puppet, and people were asking more and more for other ways to configure the client, and many people were also asking about Ansible. So now we support a way how to do it with Ansible. The workflow is pretty much the same as it is with Puppet, only we will be using the Ansible role for Foreman SCAP client. It is in our packaging. It is published on Galaxy, and the repo lives under the Foreman organization. So if you think there is something missing or find bug, we will be looking forward to your report, to the bug reports, and even better, you can try to fix it and contribute. So basically, the first thing that you need to do is import the Ansible role from proxy. I have already done it as a preparation for this demo. I also imported the variables. I am on the configure Ansible variables now. As you can see, I searched for all the variables that belong to the Foreman SCAP client role. There is a bunch of them. So yeah, once you have the Ansible role set up, you can go ahead and create a new policy. And this is the policy create wizard. And as you can see, the first step has changed. In the first step, you will now be prompted to select the type of deployment, whether you want to use Ansible, Puppet, and we also added a third manual option, which means basically no support in client deployment from Foreman whatsoever, and it's entirely up to user to make sure the client is configured properly and everything is set up. So this is the only change in the host wizard in the policy wizard. As you can see, if I choose Ansible and go to the next step, I'm prompted to use input the policy name and descriptions, and all the rest of the steps is same as it was. So basically now you have to choose cap content and then you choose schedule. And I've shown this in the previous demos, so there's no really need to go over this. But once you have policy, you can assign it to your host. Just make sure your host has the Ansible role as well. So this is the Ansible role step when editing the host. As you can see, I've already assigned the role to the host. And the difference between Ansible, one of the differences between Ansible and Puppet is that Ansible doesn't run periodically. So once you have the policy and you have assigned it to the role and you have assigned it to the host and you have assigned the role to the host as well, you need to run Ansible, and you can do that from the Foreman UI. On this dropdown, you just click Run Ansible roles, and all the roles will be applied. All the roles that you have assigned will be applied to the host. Again, I have already done it, and this is the result. This is the output of the playbook. Here at the top, we display all the current parameters that come from Foreman. There's quite a lot of them, so I'll scroll down to the bottom. As you can see, here are the changes that the Foreman SCAP client role applied. So yeah, it installed the Foreman SCAP client package and deployed the config and things like that. And now, if I go to my host and take a look at the config, I can see that it is actually managed by Ansible here in the header. The config is deployed, and there is the policy. And basically, this is all that you need to deploy the Foreman SCAP client using Ansible. There is one thing that I would like to call attention to. If you're using just plain Foreman without Catella, there are extra steps that you need to take in order for your client to authorize against Smart Proxy. But it is described in our documentation in detail. But that's one thing that you should be aware of. And that's all.
Great. That's a good review. There is one question for you, John, on the chat, which says, Amit says there are cases when packages have strict dependencies like greater than, less than, etc. for some package. In that case, how dependencies will be solved?
That is a good question. This is handled like under the hood by Pulp. So let me ask and see if I can find that out.
Cool. Makes sense. Okay. So Yeah, that's it for demo number 61. If you have any questions regarding the topics or any questions in general, you can uh, go to IRC, and on hash the Foreman channel, you can ask your questions. Or also on Mastoon, you can ask us all your questions. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care and see you in the next community demo.